Well, what to say? Since I'm mainly going to be praising these particular episodes, I'm going to start with some criticisms. Probably the most annoying thing was it wasn't too many places, but some of the dialogue was hair raising and not in a good way. I was like, that doesn't quite fit. If season one they went a little overboard with the biblical Shakespeare style, here they're trying to make it a little bit more contemporary, and it doesn't sound right. It's still trying to sound epic, but it comes off kind of like, huh? It's also a little bit annoying when the dialogue is from non-canonical characters. That's like, all right, that's a little annoying. And the visual effects were a little dodgy, especially for the fight scenes. The visual effects are mainly really good, so I think that's intentional because Tolkien's style is strange. There's a lot of adult things in Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. A lot of people think there's no nudity or sex. No, there is. There is in Tolkien, but there's also a lot of juvenile stuff. And yeah, some of the characters and even their descriptions are laughably silly, but there we are. So that's the dilemma with Rings of Power. They're trying to keep some things very close to the books, but other things are very loose, and this is no different. That said, if season one suffered from some pacing problems, I didn't mind too much. I don't mind a slow story, but it was a little too slow for most people. This one seems better balanced, and for the most part, the pacing is building up to some really interesting big battles. I will say, if you've seen the trailers, these episodes will be slightly ruined, which I did. So they were anticlimactic, however, they were still very well done. I am still a little bit upset that Galadriel is being framed as a very, well, small woman, whereas canonically she's supposed to be huge. She's supposed to be very, very tall. I don't know if that's a deliberate choice because it seemed last season they were making her a little too powerful, and here she's a little bit more constrained. So it just feels inconsistent, but that's a small gripe. Now let's get to the good stuff, and surprisingly, the hobbits are being very well done. I mean, if you know the clues they set out, you kind of know where it's going to go with the wizard. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a little disappointed they made the obvious choice, but there we are. But that said, the wizard scenes with Tom Bombadil were consistently very, very well done, and I enjoyed them a lot. I do wish Tom was a little bit more cheery, but again, there's a war happening, and Tom Bombadil is very wise, so he knows that there's gonna be a lot of blood, carnage, and a lot of innocent people dying. So I can see why he's a little bit somber about how things will have to happen. I mean, Tom is just one of the most fascinating characters that Tolkien created, and the performance there was very winning. I do wish it was a little bit more bright with cinematography, but that's about it. So Tom Bombadil really alone was fantastic. That said, although the Easter eggs were mostly well done with Numenor and the dwarves and the other scenes, some of them felt a little bit out of place, or I wish they would focus more centrally on people like Al Farazan, whereas here Farazan is a little diminished, and I get it. They need to spread out to the other characters, but there it also felt. I guess I'm gonna invent a word, janky. I guess it felt a little janky. It still felt right for the characters, but I don't know why we're concentrating on these characters at this time. It just seems like it's a little bit all over the map. But it looked consistently really, really spectacular. The costumes, production design, visual effects. When we get to Numenor, it looks properly like a massive, very powerful empire. So overall, a very slow moving epic, but very touching and very frightening in a few places. I think it's still a little bit up in the air whether they're going a little too far, showing too much blood. But again, it is in Tolkien, it is canonical. However, when you read it in Tolkien, it's kind of just done very quickly. It's one or two sentences. But when you kind of adapt it, you're going to be forced to show more. So I know there's a lot of controversies with how the orcs are being depicted, but again, if you study the books carefully, no, they do have families. There's out of discussion how those families operate, but no, they do have families. They do feel things. They don't just get up and just destroy stuff. They do actually have personalities. So that's probably the most controversial part of this that's probably the most controversial part of this adaptation, but it's one of the most consistently fascinating things that they've chosen to tackle. So that's very weird but interesting how Adar handles the orcs. So overall, very strong stuff, but a few minor problems. So I'm going to give each episode 7.75. Not quite pure 8 out of 10 greatness, but very close to it.